for a message about practicing resilience. Jessie.
I like it. I like being tall. So, a lot of what I'm saying is going to maybe sound a little bit familiar, but that's okay. I mean, it's all about many of the things we've been talking about already this morning. I just want to start by lifting up one of the truly outstandingly beautiful things about FUF, this specific Unitarian Universalist congregation, is the deep, deep commitment on the part of so many of you to discern your own true spiritual path. A spiritual path being thinking about questions such as, who am I? To whom or to what do I belong? Why am I here? How then should I live? These are personal and ultimately very individual journeys, and there's so many different ways of approaching these questions, which range from the highly secular to the highly mystical and everything in between, and sort of off that board in a different axis altogether. And often what happens is one's spiritual path shifts and changes in unexpected ways with the challenges and inspirations and flashes of light, flashes of insight that life presents. And we're often taken by surprise by that, aren't we? It's like we're going along, we think we know what we believe, and then all of a sudden, that doesn't fit anymore. That doesn't fit. The cool thing is that in Unitarian Universalism, that's okay. It doesn't mean you lose your faith community. You're still here. You're still seeking. And it's important to continue these spiritual journeys, these spiritual investigations, your individual spiritual investigations, because spiritual growth with the goal of increasing spiritual maturity, however you understand that to be, your capacity to be calm in the face of, well, insanity, your ability to gather and use your own resources, even when there are so many loud voices trying to make sure that you don't remember to do that because it's so important that you remember this. It's like, no. Spiritual maturity is one of the most important tools that we have for navigating the complex planetary crises that beset us in these times. So I want to just take a moment to bow to you, this congregation, in recognition of your collective congregational understanding of the real necessity of individual spiritual growth. I honor you. This is not true in many congregations, many UU congregations, actually many congregations worldwide, actually, but in particular Unitarian Universalism. But what you do here together is a collective journey, which is to say a religious journey. Okay, so there's that dreaded word, the R word, religion. Oh no. The beautiful truth of Unitarian Universalism is that because it welcomes all spiritual paths, you can be here for as long as you like with whatever you discover. You're not going to lose your religious identity as a result of your spiritual investigations. We will still be here. We will still love you. Really, tell me about your journey. It's so different than mine. Oh, I never thought about that. Let me go away and think about that. It might affect how I see things too. We're not bound together by our spiritual beliefs, but by the values that hold us together and that form the foundation of our faith. Now, as Mark Morrison Reed said in our opening readings today, the central task of the religious community is to unveil, right? Pull the curtain aside, Vanna. The bonds that bind each to all. So what's revealed is, what is that network of mutuality that we're engaged in? There's a connectedness, a relationship discovered amid the particulars of our own lives and the lives of others. How do we unveil those bonds? Well, actually, back in 2024, we, after a multi-year process, a bottom-up process, within and between as many of our congregations as wanted to participate in the process and as many of our people that wanted to participate in the process, we discovered and affirmed most powerfully that we collectively and unabashedly center love as a primary force in our personal and communal lives. Now, this was a little unexpected. I think people were really, as a community, we do that. We center love. Why? Because everybody put that as a primary, well, not everybody, but when they did the analyses, that's the big word in the center of that word cloud, right? So, since we're primarily known by others as a justice-seeking people, that raises some really interesting points, and more about that in a moment. We believe that by extending and being willing to receive, I want to just riff on love here for a minute. By being willing to receive and by extending a radically expansive, radically inclusive love to people, that means everyone, the possibilities of transformation, which is soul deep changes in both givers and receivers, are multiplied. Well, what does that mean exactly? It's like, well, it's like using a muscle. If you work on love, the more you work on love, and we're going to come back to that again in a minute too, the more you work on it, the more you become surprised, the more things open up to you, and you discover things that you would never expect. I remember when I was a wilderness guide, I've started off being a naturalist because I said I don't really do people, you know. I do plants and animals, and I'm happy to do that. But I discovered as I was going on these canoe trips with people that, gosh, you know, there were all these different personalities, and somehow we all had to work together and get along to do these things, and that was not a straightforward path. And I discovered that I actually kind of fell in love with all the participants. It's like, oh, they're so beautiful because of this. And it's like, oh, that person that I found so irritating on day one, oh my God, I'm so glad I decided to love them because I discovered this thing. And that overtakes the rest of the story. You know, finding that connection, finding that unexpected thread that connects us to others. Morrison Reed goes on to point out that the religious community is essential because alone our vision, our personal vision, you know, our individual vision, it's too narrow to see everything that must be seen. And our strength is definitely too limited to do all that must be done. Together our vision widens and our strength is renewed. And this is a good thing because loners who work alone in the world on these things, loners have no guideposts. They have no fellow travelers to tell them the hard truths of what their presence in the world really looks like to people outside of themselves. They have no structures of accountability to help them stay on track. And all of these things are really necessary. And all of this, even no matter how brilliant they are, and there are many, many fabulously brilliant people, but in the end, they still only have their own ideas, right? They have a lot of them, more than most people. That's okay. There are 8 billion people in the world. I bet you don't have that many ideas. So all of this is basically why church, why we gather one day a week, and why we bother to reconnect, to remember love, to remember that we are loved just as we are, as the song goes, right through and through, by this very community, despite whatever we may or may not think about ourselves. And that if we can be loved, then together we can pour out into this hurting world the same powerful love. And how is love powerful? Well, Martin Luther King, the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King, who thought a lot about these things, had this to say about that. Power without love is reckless and abusive. Check. And love without power is sentimental and anemic. Power at its best is love implementing the demands of justice. That's what we're looking for. And justice at its best is power correcting everything that stands in the way of love. Everything. So I would submit to you that love, that thing that we think we have, or we think we don't have, or we struggle with, love is in fact the core of resilience. Love is the secret ingredient in the recipe for surviving and thriving, despite anything, despite everything. Love is that muscle that we get to exercise over and over again in community. And the more we figure out, when you go to the PT and you say, I got a problem in my, wrist. And they say, okay, move your head like this. And you say, I'm sorry, what? But it works. Yeah, love is that muscle. Love is that muscle that we don't know that we're not using until we try to use it. And we are starting to have little trouble finding out where it is. Well, it takes practice. Love takes practice. Real love takes a lot of practice. And that's our secret sauce. That's our secret survival tool. It's not even secret. Now, the reason I'm telling you all this is because of, today, right? These days. Well, not today. Today's been actually quite beautiful. But I want to point out that one of Dr. King's spiritual mentors was an African-American author and minister by the name of the Reverend Dr. Howard Thurman, who some of you may know of. He was also a friend, Dr. Thurman was also a friend of Dr. King's father, and he did a lot of things. He was an author, a minister, many, many things. And I want to read you many parts of a long meditation he wrote, probably in the mid-40s, 1940s, right? So this was when things were raging in ways that are feeling a little familiar. He says, let me see, I have to start at the beginning here. Where did the beginning go? During these turbulent times, we must remind ourselves repeatedly that life goes on. That's the name of this meditation, life goes on. This, we are apt to forget. The wisdom of life transcends our wisdoms. The purpose of life outlasts our purposes. He goes on to say, the mass attack of disillusion and despair distilled out of the collapse of hope has so invaded our thoughts that what we know to be true and valid seems unreal and ephemeral. There seems to be little energy left for aught but futility. This is the great deception, and by it, whole peoples have gone down into oblivion. Futility. Don't believe it. But it brings us into a consideration of despair. A few weeks ago, I was privileged to hear an absolutely riveting presentation by a Canadian transgender cultural worker and speaker by the name of Kay Cheng Tong. And she was electrifying. One phrase that she used really stood out to me. Despair, she said, is just love with a broken heart. Oh. I think of despair as like this landscape of ruin and loss. Mary Oliver, the poet, writes, tell me about despair, yours, and I will tell you mine. But she goes on to say, meanwhile, the world goes on. That's the title of his meditation, Life Goes On. She says, meanwhile, the sun and the clear pebbles of rain are moving across the landscapes. So maybe, as we're considering our despair, if we can learn to love ourselves, even in our own brokenheartedness over the world as it actually is today, then we can hold space for others who are also traveling those landscapes. And if we have not learned yet the skills to touch and start to heal those places, well, the second best time to start is now. That's a thing, because healing our despair is going to help us with this love stuff. And the love is what's going to get us through. So there's a deep relationship between the individual work that we do on a spiritual level, on a personal level, and the collective work that we are able to do as communities. And it's all related to how strongly we can flex our collective love muscles. So I'm going to read you, this gets dark. I'm going to warn you, this gets dark for a minute, but then we're going to come back up again. Thurman knows about despair, and after warning about the great deception of that feeling of futility, he has this to say about evil. Now, I know evil is a theological concept that a lot of people don't believe in. Nevertheless, there are things that happen in the world that seem like, you could say, well, that's just bad. But he puts it this way. There's no need to fear evil. There's every need to understand what it does, how it operates in the world, what it draws upon to sustain itself. We must not shrink from the knowledge of the evilness of evil. Over and over, we must know that the real target of evil is not destruction of the body, the reduction to rubble of cities. The real target of evil is to corrupt, and this is not feminist language, don't worry about that. The real target of evil is to corrupt the spirit of man and give his soul the contagion of inner disintegration. That's the goal. Don't go there. Don't go there, and if you feel you're going there, call a friend. That's what we're here for. When this happens, he says, there is nothing left. Therefore, the evil around us in the world must not be allowed to move from without to within. This would be to be overcome by evil. So then you have to say, well, okay, Dr. Thurman, and the remedy is what exactly? He says, the very next line is, to drink in the beauty that is within reach. Oh. There's beauty everywhere. To clothe one's life in simple deeds of kindness. To keep alive a sensitiveness to the movement of spirit in the quietness of the human heart and in the workings of the human mind. This is, as always, the ultimate answer to the great deception. It's a deception. Don't buy it. You don't have to disintegrate. There is help here and in many, 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 many other places. Now here's the thing, and the reason why I keep coming back to love. We can't think our way out of despair. We can't do that. Out of the ravages of evil. We can't think. Thinking is something that individuals can do and engage in all by ourselves. In fact, I think, therefore I am, is said to be Descartes' famous phrase, although he said it in Latin. Well, actually, he said it in French so that more people would understand it, but then it got translated to Latin because so fewer people could understand it, I guess. But anyway, whatever. You know, that's how they do things. This was in the early 1600s, and it's said that this one phrase, I think, therefore I am, forms the basis of all Western philosophy. Well. It just spins off my mind into its own individual little trajectory, and then we're all good, right? We're all spinning around. What can't be done alone is to love. Because love is always relational. Love involves others. Hopefully our families, hopefully our communities of choice, but if not, we still have the work of finding those communities where we can learn to love even the most unlikely people, situations, landscapes, where we can live surrounded by things that are so different from ourselves, so different from what we've grown up knowing, that our muscles now can work. Learning how to love responsibly, respectfully, kindly, honestly, is perhaps one of Earth School's greatest lessons. That's what we're here for. Love and give gratitude, that's our job. Maybe starting with gratitude, and then you can understand why it is that you, actually do love. Like all deep lessons, it sounds ridiculously simple. So it's important to learn to distinguish love for others from other emotions, such as one's yearning or need to be loved. Right? But where's the best place to get that love for yourself? Oh, right here. Okay? So we learn to love ourselves and others in all their ugly, unwieldy, prickly parts. And this I claim, and I will always claim, this is the heart of resilience. This is how we garner the strength to get up and do it again this afternoon, this evening, after our next nap. This is what we do. This is how we make it through. And it's important to be able to do this in community or in communities. Many of us have many communities. This kind of love is necessary, especially in diverse communities. And it gives us diversity in communities, gives us a chance to practice, doesn't it? To practice love. Not to practice the language that we have to use to make sure, but to practice the love. The love. Practice the love, and everything else will come. It will be all right, even if it's sometimes awkward. Our collective strength grows from our collective diversity. The more diverse we are, the stronger we are. Maybe you've seen that in a garden. If you have a monoculture of something and you have a disease, it's gone. But if you have an integrated community web, it's not. So this kind of intentional muscular love takes intention, imagination, courage, and commitment. It is lifelong work. And this is how we, as one among many communities, religious and otherwise, will become adept at meeting these critical moments in our shared story. So are you willing to join me in this work? We can't fail, we can only stop trying, right? Will you join me in committing to stay the course of love, to recommit time after time, to apply your muscles of love to this work, will you? If so, please signify now by some expression of assent, as loud or as peculiar as it may be. Will you join me?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
All right. Now, we're going to need teachers to see us through. So I would like to share one last poem with you. And teachers, this is what we ask. This is a Chinook blessing litany. It's taken from a book about Indigenous adaptive resilience, and it's called Teach Us and Show Us the Way. And many of you are going to recognize parts of this. Oh, I've heard that before. No, what you've heard is the Haudenosaunee gratitude prayer. This is different. This is a blessing litany. We call upon the earth, our planet home, with its beautiful depths and soaring heights, its vitality and abundance of life, and together we ask that it teach us and show us the way. We call upon the mountains, the Cascades, and the Olympics, because this is Chinook, right? The high green valleys and the meadows filled with wildflowers, the snows that never melt, the summits of intense silence. And we ask that they teach us and show us the way. We call upon the waters that rim the earth, horizon to horizon, that flow in our rivers and streams, that fall upon our gardens and fields, and we ask that they teach us and show us the way. We call upon the land which grows our food, the nurturing soil, the fertile fields, the abundant gardens and orchards, and we ask that they teach us and show us the way. We call upon the forests, the great trees reaching strongly to the sky with the earth in their roots and the heavens in their branches, the fir and the pine and the cedar, and we ask them to teach us and show us the way. We call upon the creatures of the fields and forests and seas, our brothers and sisters, the wolves and deer, the eagle and dove, the great whales and dolphin, the beautiful orca and salmon, who share our Northwest home, and we ask them to teach us and show us the way. We call upon all those who have lived on this earth, our ancestors and our friends, who dreamed the best for future generations, those ancestors, and upon whose lives our lives are built. And with thanksgiving, we call upon them to teach us and show us the way. And lastly, we call upon all that we hold most sacred, the presence and power of the great Spirit of love and truth, which flows through all the universe, to be with us and teach us the way. Amen, amen, and blessed be. My dear community. So I think we're rolling right into hymn 1017, is that right?
Yes, 1017.
1017.